Okay, so the other thing we're going to need for the exercises are the two bars that we're going to put in the top here. We have the home, we have the view, which we use quite a lot, but there's another couple. And if you go over one of these tabs, any one of them, and do a right click, you can come down to show tabs, and you can see that 3D Tools is not there, so click it. Right click on the tab again, go down to tabs, and visualize, and click it. That now sets us up for doing most of the exercises. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So if we go up onto the bar, into this draw area here, the first option is line. Now you click on the line, bring it down on the screen, you'll see it jiggles a little bit because we got the snap on. I'm just going to draw a basic shape with the line, and it's simply left click on the mouse, left click, left click, left click, left click. So you're picking point to point, and then we can just right click and enter to end it. Now the difference between the line and the polyline is that the line is made up of individual segments, as you can see on the screen here. These are all individual lines, they are not joined in any way. So if I hit the escape key, I'll get rid of the grips that's just been shown. The polyline, on the other hand, if I click the polyline and come down on the screen, I can do a similar sort of shape. Let's get that one roundabout lined up. And the difference between one that does individual lines like that and the polyline, you can see immediately the whole thing illuminates, and I can left click that, everything gets selected at once. This is the type of line that we want to use if we're trying to make profiles or lines for the plasma cutter. This one, it would just see a series of single lines, and it would cut each one individually and probably try to plow into the bottom of the table because it would be going into a line that's already been cut. So the polyline is the option that we use when we want to do things on the plas. The next command is the circle command. So I'm just going to click the circle command and bring it on screen. Click for the center point, pull it out, and then click to let go. Instead of clicking by pulling it out and just clicking the mouse, I could just pull it out, enter a value, and it will put that in as the radius. But there are far more options on the circle than that. If you go to the circle and then go down to the little caret at the bottom, you'll see that there are in fact 6. The one that defaults is a center radius, that's the one I've just done. You can put it in by the center, then the diameter, so you have to tell it what the diameter is. You can pick 2 points to stretch the circle, 3 points if you have to go and use it as a blending feature. We're going to be using the tan radius later on the chain link experiment, or the exercise. And then there's a tan. Sounds like a bad song, but you get the idea. There's a number of options up there, and we're going to be using at least 3-4 of those. Okay, so I'm just going to click on the screen to get off of that. The arc command. The arc command, this one's got even more options. Let me show you the options. So depending on how you want to draw it, you can just simply draw a 3-point command, which is roughly an eyebrow. You could just pull it from the start, the center, and the end. So I'll look at the options again, and you'll see that's the first one at the top. That's the default. If you need to do start, then the center, and an angle, you can do that. Or start, center, and a finish length, like a chord, you can do that. And so on, all the way down the list. There are tons of different options for an arc. You can use that one on the plas. Now, the top box over here is the rectangle command. That one we use quite a lot, especially in these exercises. So I'm going to show you that this is not just a rectangle, because there's a caret by the side as well. And if you look at it, there's a rectangle and a polygon. Okay, so we're just going to put a rectangle down for now. I'm just going to pick 2 points, and pull that thing out. That's as simple as making a rectangle is. Okay, now we're going to how to draw with coordinates in the first exercise, so I'm not going to go into that now. I just want to show you a little bit more about these commands. So I'm going to click this now, but this time I'm going to change, keep your eye on that rectangle up there. I'm going to change to polygon, and you can see that there's a polygon right there now. Now it's telling me down the bottom, enter the number of sides. So I'm going to put 6, then enter. Now it says whereabouts is the center of the polygon. Well, I'm going to put it in, or just over here, and then pull it. Okay, it says, do you want an inscribed circle or a circumscribed circle? Now an inscribed circle means that the circle, or an imaginary circle, would be inside of the polygon. A circumscribed, it goes around the outside of a polygon. So whether you want to measure it from its flats or from the peaks on like a hex nut, that's how you would pick it. I'm just going to pick inscribed for now, and you can see that this one is going to the points. So the hexagon is inside the circle. If I've done it by circumscribed, the hexagon will be outside the circle. Okay, and I'm just going to click to drop it down. You could also enter a value. Now the one thing to note is, once you've actually put one of these down, look for the rectangle. It isn't there, it's hiding, because this is the last thing we used. These will toggle between. You just have to remember that the rectangle is up there as well as the polygon. Now the next feature on here is the ellipse. Now if I click that downward caret, you'll see there's 3 different types of ellipse. Now using ellipses is quite common practice, especially when you do an isometric drawings, because you've got the circle that's turned kind of sideways. Okay, so you can use that to define a hole that's going in at an angle of maybe 45 degrees or so. There's a problem with ellipses. If you want to burn something out using an ellipse, it will not see the ellipse. It does not know what an ellipse is, and it can't datum it. It can't join it to anything else. You can use it in a drawing to do an orthographic drawing, but as far as using it as a path trace for the plasma, it won't even see the ellipse, so don't use them. Another thing that it doesn't like is spline lines. Okay, so if you put a spline or a spline curve down, it won't see that either. It will not cut out. It won't see it on the plasma. So ellipses are fine for drawing, and I'll pick the standard one and just pick the center point, move it across, and then squash the heights of the other axis, and there's an ellipse. Now the last option on here is the hatch. So if I click downwards on the hatch, you'll see you've got 3 different types of hatching. One is purely a boundary, as you can see by the drawing there. If you're doing a block plan or something, it will boundary the whole thing. One is a gradient, which is great if you're doing landscaping and you want to put something in that looks like a bit of a pond. It will graduate between one color and another. And the last one, which is pretty common, is the hatch. And the cross hatching that we do on things like drawings are for like sectional views or part views through an object. Now I'm just going to pick the hatch for now. You'll see that this menu at the top will change, but it goes to the hatch menu, and there's lots of commands up here. We're only going to use a few of them. Basically you can see some of the hatches, the solid, the angle, etc. And I'm just going to come down on this arrow. You can see there's tons more. In fact, there's a brick one there. I'm going to pick that. Okay, now once you've got it, you'll note down here it says pick an internal point or select objects. Now if I go to this one, you'll see that the hatch will immediately appear in there. If I clicked it, it will drop it straight inside of that shape. It will drop it in that one, etc. Okay, it won't drop it in anything that's open. So if you got something that's not completely joined, or something like a single feature, you cannot put hatch in between like the circle and this eyebrow. It won't go because it's got an open end. That's the only time you won't be able to put the hatch down. Now, if I drop a hatch in there, I'm just going to left click the hatch and just drop it. That's now done. Now, if I move it, the whole thing will move with the hatch, and I can stretch it and it will also move with the hatch. So I'm just going to close the hatch creation and just show you basically like a stretch command. Now, to get that little lasso effect out, I just held my mouse key down with nothing else selected. I do a right click, pick the corner and move that box out. So I can move that down like that and left click, and guess what? The hatch moves with it. So once you put the hatch into an object, be careful about breaking it because you could lose the hatch completely, but you can stretch it and the hatch will go with it. Okay, so again, another important reason for using a polyline and something that we could really cut out. You can see that's a completely enclosed polyline because it was a rectangle. Right, well, have a play around with these commands. There's a lot of them. This one particularly we don't use that often, but the main construction commands we do. So play around with it, have fun, and I'll see you in the modified tutorial.